Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Joe Naz podcast. Today, we have a close friend of mine and someone that I actually went to law school with, Jessica Del Hubbard, here as a guest. And I am very excited to have you here because the work that you do is so important. And I did a pretty deep dive into looking what your nonprofit is about. And I just want to say I'm so proud to be a friend with you and so proud of the work that you do. And we're going to obviously dive deep into that. And I'm just excited to have you here to share the story of Casa Youth Shelter and just to share with our guests how they can help and they can be of service to support your organization. So today we're going to have Jessica here. I'm going to give a little bit of an intro about Jessica to give you guys a little bit of information about her. And just thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's really an honor to be here.
Cool. Awesome. So for those of you who don't know Jessica Del Hubbard, Jessica serves as the CEO of Casa Youth Shelter. It's a nonprofit located in Los Alamos, California. They serve runaway youth, throwaway youth, trafficked youth, and youth in crisis. And I definitely want to go through what each one of those terms mean because I think that it's important to define those things. She has a master's degree in educational leadership. I also want to hear what that is. And we went to the same law school, and she obviously did not go down the lawyer route. She decided to be of service through a nonprofit, which is excellent. And you're doing just as much work as you would be as an attorney, probably a lot more in the long run and the impact that you're having. And she had an emphasis in criminal law. She's been working with youth for over 20 years, and she uses her own personal experience with abuse and neglect to let kids know that they have the power to shape their own brighter futures. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I guess my first question, just to kind of get us started, like how did you end up working with Casa Youth Shelter and why did you choose to work with this nonprofit over others? You're not the founder, correct?
I'm not the founder. We've been around for 46 years.
Okay, 46 years. Who is the founder?
Founder is Mildred E. Jones.
Okay.
And we have a lot in common. One thing we do not have in common is she was very tiny. I'm very tall. She stood at around 5 feet tall, 5 feet no inches. But this is a woman that many people describe as someone that did not take no for an answer. And that is where we connect. And that is something that I try to embody every single day when it's advocating for youth. And that's when she was like, she's not taking no for an answer, when she's speaking up for youth. So she founded the organization. She had been speaking to her network and friends and family and influencing people for so many years in the advocacy of youth. And saying that we need a shelter. There needs to be a shelter like this for kids that have nowhere else to go. And she was saying, when I die, when I pass away, and everyone was like, when you die, do it now, do it now. And so she did. And so she started Casa Youth Shelter. This wasn't just a pet project or just a passion project.
Was she abused herself?
Her background was in social work. And, we don't have that part of her story, but we know that this was incredibly important to her. She served as an advisor to President Ronald Reagan in this capacity and in the area of runaway youth, homeless youth, throwaway youth. And that's the actual government term, by the way. That's not something we coined.
Is she somebody that came from wealth and just wanted to create this organization, or just something she was passionate about since she was a child?
She came from a really big heart. Her background was actually, she was a naval officer. She was a lieutenant commander in the Navy. This was a person whose entire life embodied service, and she had a massive heart. She was also, she helped plant the seeds for a lot of other nonprofits and organizations in the area as well. But Casa, she saw the need, and I'm always inspired. I think you're this way too, Joe. We're inspired by people who have that foresight to see into the future, not just what the community or the world needs right now, but to be able to envision into the future what the world will need. And she did that because we are just as relevant now as we were 46 years ago when we were founded. The other thing that she founded and created was the first ever youth crisis hotline, which is something that we now kind of take for granted. Like, call this 1-800 number, reach out, and someone will be there for you. And if you're in the moment of crisis 24/7, she was the first to establish that for kids to be able to reach out 24/7, 365. And that line still operates for us today. That's one of the primary sources of our referrals. So kids can still call when they are in crisis and when they need help.
So when they're calling, are they speaking to like a licensed psychologist, or who are they speaking to when they call in?
It depends. So we do have a licensed clinical team in our staff. A lot of times that first call is picked up by a volunteer or someone on our staff that is still trained to handle those crisis calls. And then when they come in, our kids are working with a licensed clinical team. So all of that work is managed by a clinical supervisor. Every child receives a customized care plan and is assigned to one of our clinical therapists. So it's very, very structured. and individualized.
Okay. And so, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to think, like, in general, like, how would somebody find this number? Is it just like Google youth in crisis, or I'm in trouble, I'm a teen, I need help? Like, I'm just wondering how that would fall upon this number, because I didn't know about Casa Youth
Right.
Shelter until we started talking about what you were doing, right? So I'm just
Yep.
wondering how they would have even gotten access to that many years ago.
It's so true. It's word of mouth mostly. And that's why I love to have an opportunity like this to share our stories, our existence with the world, so that people know, because we accept kids from all over the world. We've had, unfortunately, sadly, parents send their kids to us from out of the country. So we need everyone to know that we exist. And also because there's so few organizations like us in existence. Between Culver City and Huntington Beach, we're the only facility of this kind. And in all of Orange County, there are only 18 licensed beds. We occupy 12 of them.
So when you say that you're the only one of this kind, does that mean just serving the youth specifically, or is it specifically serving youth that are injured in the ways that you've described in the bio that I read?
Yeah, it's that emergency shelter that if a kid has been harmed or has nowhere else to go, has literally nowhere else to go other than the streets, where else can they go but us? And there's just very few places like us that exist that will take an unaccompanied minor and be able to provide them with safety, security, housing, shelter, food, resources, etc.
Okay. All right, two things. One, I realize my phone is not on silent. I don't want to be disturbed. And then if you can, just move the microphone 1 inch this way. Just pick it up like, yeah, perfect. There we go. Cool, because we're talking directly to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in regards to that bio, we had 4 different descriptions of youth that you work with. Do you want to go through those different descriptions of what each one of them means? I know we said that there was one that's abandoned. There's the ones that have been trafficked. But do you want to go through those and explain?
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's not one kind of kid that we serve at Casa Youth Shelter, and crisis looks all ways. And I think people think crisis only looks one way or comes from a certain ethnicity or a certain socioeconomic background, and that's just not true. So we serve runaway youth. These are kids that have, and there's also this misconception about running away. They think that they're running towards something, like this is, a kid that wants to go be with their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and they want to be a little rebellious. That's not the case. When we're talking about a child that has run away from their home, they are running away from something, and it's likely severe abuse and or neglect. So we serve runaway youth. We serve throwaway youth, which is, again, this is the actual term that is coined by government agencies. And what that refers to is a kid that has been cast out or thrown out of their home and has nowhere else to go. We see this a lot in cases of LGBTQ youth. So they might come out to their parents, or might be bringing home friends that are out or clearly out, or just any displaying behavior that the parent considers to be different or that they're uncomfortable with. And the parent will say, not in my house, get out.
Yeah. And then they're basically just homeless at that point. They have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so I guess when they come to your organization, are you like providing them a place to stay for like a day or two until they get into foster care? Or are you just providing them a place to stay until they turn 18? Like, what does that exactly look like?
All of the above. It just depends on the kid and what their needs are.
Okay.
So we do work with social services and foster care agencies. And sometimes we are that in-between place where a kid has been picked up from primary caregiver that's no longer able to have their child. They'll stay with us for a little while foster care finds them permanent placement. Or it could be that a kid finds us because they need safety, shelter, and they have literally nowhere else to go. And then we're working with them to reunify with family or caregiver, or find them somewhere else that's going to be a permanent place that they can live. It just depends. That's all different.
Okay, got it. And so the facility that you guys have in Los Alamos, is it like a home, a house? Is it like a shelter? Like, can you describe what that looks like or what it is like?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like also pictures online we can look at somewhere.
There are. We have a virtual tour too, and we need to update that because we're always updating the house, and we just did a refresh of the bedrooms. But I really like talking about the house, and I appreciate this question because I think whenever you do try and conceptualize an organization or a facility like ours, you might be thinking, okay, well, it's licensed clinical care. It must feel like a facility. It must have that cold, sterile facility feeling.
Yeah.
No, it feels like a house. And what I love is when we do have to have an intake for a child, and it's bittersweet, right? Like we're pained and sad that a child needs this kind of safety and shelter, but really happy that they're able to find us and find safety with us. So when they arrive, so many of the kids will say, oh my goodness, this feels like home. This feels safe.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to, I've had a kid say, I don't want to leave. This is where I want to live.
Yeah.
It might be the first time that they've ever slept in a bed.
Yeah.
It might be the first time that they've ever had a mattress. It might be the first time they've ever had a bedroom door, a bedroom. There's a lot of firsts that we get to experience when they come to our home. So it doesn't feel like a clinical facility. It feels like a home, and it should, because we want it to be welcoming. We want it to feel safe. When the kids arrive, they're going through the intake process. We have a really lengthy process, so we're getting to learn everything about the child and make sure that we have a custom care plan that fits them, match them with the right counselor on our staff, but then also get to know them as a person. And they'll also receive a cozy blanket so that they have that warmth and comfort. They are going to receive so much more than just the shelter, the bed, and 3 nutritious meals a day. There's a lot of other pieces. We have these really beautiful expressive arts therapy programs. And so they're all healing and holistic. That's the approach, but it's also fun, and it allows them space to just be a kid. So it could be playing on our sport court. It could be learning how to sew. It could be taking cooking classes, origami, these like really nurturing experiences that allow them to grow as a whole human.
Do you like provide schooling for them too? Like, I mean, depending on their age, like teachers that are there teaching like certain grades, or do you send them off if they need that?
That's such an important question. And we get that a lot because when they're with us 24/7 for that length of stay. And it could be 3 days. It could be 4 months. It just depends. Average length of stay is around 3 weeks. But even still, you're thinking, well, what's going on with school at that time?
And then where do they go after 3 weeks?
And that, it just depends.
Of course, it depends. Yeah.
It depends. It could be a reunification. It could be to another place that's safe and stable. The goal is safe and stable. Whatever that looks like is going to be different for every kid, just depending on where they came from and where they're able to go.
How many kids are usually in the facility at a time?
We have 12 beds, so we're licensed for 12. We don't turn anyone away. We find a way. And because everything is sort of this fluid case management plan. So let's say Joe's come in. Joe's been with us for a few weeks. He's doing really great. He's progressing. We can see that he's meeting his goals. We're maxed out at 12. Someone else comes in. We might just decide to exit Joe, and we'll have a conversation with Joe. We'll have a conversation with family if that's a reunification. So we just work things out to find a way to make sure everything fits. So sometimes, I mean, it's always busy. There's always kids in the house, and it just depends.
Yeah. Okay. And so there's no situation, even if you had more than 12 people, you'd figure it out.
We figure it out. We find a way. Yes.
Okay.
We call licensing. We figure something out.
Got it. And then are there facilities that typically take in more children than this, or do you find 12 is a sweet spot? Like, or is there typically like an influx, or are you usually like right around like 10 or 8 kids?
Yeah, no, good question. We're actually on the high end. And so as I shared before, 12 licensed beds for us, 18 in all of Orange County. Okay. All of Orange County. So there's one other facility.
There's only 18 beds in all of Orange County.
That's it.
Is Los Alamos considered Orange County?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was LA.
No, it's a great position for us because we're right on the line of Orange County and LA County. We're considered to be Orange County, which is great, home to me. But then also we have access to LA County because LA has a lack for these resources as well too. Got
it. So if like a kid somehow finds your number, they find your facility, they call and they're like, hey, I need help with this. Do you guys go pick them up, or like how does that work?
We can, or they can. We work with them to arrange transportation. We also have local law enforcement that works very closely with us. The chief of police of Los Alamos sits on our board and has held a seat on our board for decades upon decades, if not from our inception, I believe. So we work really closely with local law enforcement because, one, they're right there on the street, so they're often able to scoop up that child and they know to take them to us. But then there are also those frontline folks that are going to those homes and seeing if anything's taking place where they might need to intervene.
Got it. So how long have you been the CEO now?
I've been there for just over 1 year.
Over 1 year?
Yeah.
And how did that end up coming to fruition?
So I found nonprofit work. So you know my background, and law was to be possibly a second career for me. I was a teacher for many years. My master's degree is in educational leadership. I loved teaching, but I also felt like I needed to do more, and I kept losing kids to either the criminal justice system or just getting infuriated by the lack of systems and resources in place for kids that needed help. And it could be a kid in a wheelchair, it could be a kid that had dyslexia, whatever. Just there needed to be more for children. And I thought with a law degree, maybe I could do more. About halfway through law school, I felt like this was probably not going to be where I was going to want to end up working. No disrespect, Joe, you're killing it out there, and we need folks like you to do that. It just didn't feel like...
It's not for everyone.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be my fit. And I think part of it was because I had the great benefit or the great disservice of having a career before that I loved a lot.
Yeah.
And not having that one-on-one interaction with kids, I felt like I was shriveling up and dying. So...
Yeah, but I'm sure the education just from the legal, like the Juris Doctorate, is beneficial in a million different ways.
I don't regret it for a second. And you know, I loved law school. You know,
sure. You crushed it.
I did really well. I enjoyed every second of it. I did all the things. I did all the clubs. I did all the stuff. I loved it. I loved the study of it, but the practice of it was not going to be for me. So minutes after the cap and gown were off, I was looking for my way back into education. And I worked in higher education for like a hot minute, and then found a really beautiful nonprofit organization called Girls Inc. of Orange County.
When you say you worked in higher education, what were you doing? Were you a professor at a college, or like what were you doing there?
I was teaching some classes, some paralegal classes, and that's where it started. And then that grew into me being a campus director because I had that background in running schools. And then I started doing compliance work. And so that position just kind of evolved. And when they see the JD letters after your name, it was like compliance, 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 which...
Yeah.
Oh no, goodness gracious. That's not where I wanted to be. I grow and thrive off of impact, and I just didn't see it with compliance. So I found Girls Inc. of Orange County, this really great nonprofit. I served as their chief program officer for 6 years, and then
Girls of what in Orange County?
Girls Inc. of Orange County.
Girls Inc. of Orange County.
Yes.
So you're primarily working with females. Were these all children too?
Yeah, individuals that identify as girls. So mostly kids. So 5 to 18 years old, but then they also expanded into supporting kids through college. So great organization, just promoting gender equity. I loved the programming side of it. That was my space, and really saw that, okay, this is an industry. The nonprofit industry is a great space where you don't have the red tape of the public school system, and you can really make a difference. And so I fell in love with nonprofit work.
What do you mean by gender equity?
What I mean by gender equity is any space where there seems to be a lack of equity or equality. So if you look at statistics around STEM education, around literacy, of college readiness, of college graduation, of the number of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, any spaces where there's inequity, that's what that organization sought to fix or repair.
Okay, so now you're the CEO of Casa Youth Shelter. What the name is Spanish. Is there a specific reason for the name being Spanish?
I think because of the large numbers of the large Hispanic population in Southern California, I would have to guess. Our founder was not Spanish speaking or Hispanic. And I actually think I'm the first Latina CEO or executive director of the organization. So I say that with pride. That's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are other organizations that have, and there's another organization that's really well known, that's Casa, but not Casa like house. They're court-appointed special advocates as an acronym. We often get mistaken for them because we both serve youth in the foster care system. But yes, ours is because the word means house, and we're a home.
Got it. And so for getting the licensing for 12 beds, was there a reason why you guys got 12 only, or is this specific, like the government's like, this is the max that we offer in regards to organization?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you can do more. 12 seems to be a good sweet spot for serving those kids. I do have plans for us to grow. So we have a double plot right now, and that's where our 12-bed house is. And then we have our counseling center and facility and our sport court. And then through a very generous donor, we acquired the neighboring plot of land. So we have this whole extra space that we have plans to build on soon. So it's a different plan, different population that we would serve, but sort of just still part of our mission and the same work that we're doing. So more to come for us and more growth.
So I know when people hear the word nonprofit, they're thinking you don't make any money, right?
Right.
And obviously you have to have money to run an organization. So when it comes to like running a nonprofit, and yours in specific, do you get like money from grants? Do you get money primarily from donors? Where does the funding come from? Because obviously you're housing these kids, you're feeding these kids, you're taking care of them, you're helping to rehouse them. And then also, how many employees do you guys have at the company? I think because that might give people an idea of just like how much it takes to run it. So
Yeah.
how many employees do you have? Let's
We
start
have
there.
42 employees.
42.
It's a large staff. A lot of them are part-time, but still it takes a really large team to
That's a
care for
huge
kids. It is.
Yeah.
But we're caring for them for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
We don't stop. We don't pause for holidays. COVID happened. We were still opening.
So you need a normal staff, and then you need to double it because they're there 24 hours a day, or almost
Exactly.
triple it, because that's not just one normal work shift. You have to have the in between.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
We've got our morning shift, we've got our midday, our
Yeah.
evening, and then a graveyard shift.
Yep.
So it's a big team
It's a
of
big team.
folks, and it has been nearly exclusively privately funded for over 45 years,
Okay.
almost exclusive. So we have one government grant right now. It's my hope to explore other other public funding opportunities.
But how much is that grant? It's probably something minuscule in comparison to the private funding.
Yeah, I mean, and it's
Sorry, I don't mean to ask specifically.
No.
I'm just interested.
So we're like a $2.3 million budget. So that has to come from the kindness of strangers or the kindness of people who are close to us.
Yeah.
And how we get there. So it can be public funding. So it could be government grants that are interested in investing in mental health, let's say. So because so much of what we do is related to mental health services. It could be a public grant related to runaway youth, or homelessness or housing insecurity. We fall into those areas of service as well. And then there's private funders, there's grantors, there's individual donors, there's anyone who hears our story and is like, there before the grace of fill in the blank, there go I. This is the kind of organization that I want to help and support, and this speaks to my heart.
Yeah.
And they do the most wonderful thing and give of their own money or their own time and share that with us.
Okay. I want to talk about, we talked about this a little before we started. And so it seems that this particular organization is one that you relate to because you've been through similar suffering when you were younger, or actually, I didn't get any of the details, but why do you feel that you are called to be CEO specifically of this organization?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And it's not something that I signposted. You know, we went to law school together. We were together. We were in the same section. For 3 years. We saw each other probably every single day, all the time. This isn't something that I shared with people. It was when I learned of this organization and I was appointed as CEO that I made the decision to share about my background. And even in all my years as a teacher, and I've been working with kids for over 20 years. So, but I made the decision to share this when I joined Casa Youth Shelter. I grew up in a home with poverty, abuse, neglect. It was not a picture-perfect childhood by any stretch of the imagination.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami.
Okay.
I'm a 305 girl. And I had great moments. I had wonderful family members, grandparents that took care of me. I had a great aunt and uncle, a mom who did the very best that she could. But it was a really challenged childhood. And then there was a man who entered our family friend unit and groomed me over many years. And so my own personal story, in addition to...
When you say groomed you, what do you mean? Can you give examples? I'm not sure what that means.
No, absolutely. It's I'm a survivor of sex trafficking, and that experience, I share that because those are the kids that we serve every single day. We are seeing such high numbers of kids that have experienced and survived sex trafficking. They don't know what it is. They don't even know what to call it. Yeah. I didn't know to call it that until I was an adult and in therapy and discussing it and like, oh, you know what that's called? That's called sex trafficking. And then you knew it was bad. You knew it was wrong. I thought it was some form of abuse. I didn't know what that was.
I think you said a family member did this?
It was a family friend. It was actually my middle school math teacher. And so there's a lot of misconception around sex trafficking alone. A lot of people think it's stealing a baby out of their bed, stealing your child, kidnapping your child, and crossing country lines or state lines. And that does happen. And I'm not saying that it doesn't. It's just the vast majority of sex trafficking that we're seeing every single day looks very much like what I experienced, which is a family friend or even a family member that gets close to the family. And it's usually situations where the family has some kind of need. For us, it was resources. I didn't have a strong father figure in my life. And so this man could see that we didn't have money and I didn't have a strong family, strong father figure. Also, I was kind of like a fringe kid. As I shared, I am Latina, but I'm very white presenting. I never really fit into like the Cuban cliques with other Cuban girls or Puerto Rican girls. My family is also Jewish, but I was never quite Jewish enough. So I just didn't fit anywhere. So I was one of those fringe kids. And I didn't do clubs or sports or cheerleading. We didn't have the money to be able to do any of those things. So I share all that because I was an easy target.
Got it. So you were kind of doing your own things, not just because you didn't fit in anywhere.
Yeah, just because I didn't have a parent or someone looking out for me in that way. So to say like, you should join this or you should be a part of this or I can make sure that you can do this.
So he specifically used you and targeted you because you were going through difficulties and they didn't have the support and there was not a lot of people around.
Yes. Okay. Correct. Yeah. So I share that because that story is important.
Of course. How old were you when it started?
Started when I was around 11 or 12 years old.
Okay.
And ended when I reached the age of majority when I was 18 years old.
Okay. And so this guy targeted you. If you don't mind sharing a little bit more about the story, just because I think that the details are important.
Yeah.
Because it allows people then to see what to look for.
Yep.
In a similar situation. And without the details, like for me, right? Like when you say trafficking, I'm thinking like someone got kidnapped, someone was taken maybe to a different country,
right.
Or a different state.
No.
They were sold for sex trafficking, but like we haven't even gotten to what happened with you. But I think that the details are important if you're willing to share.
Yeah.
Because I think that for any parent that could be listening to this or somebody that plans on being a future parent, right, there's probably certain signs that you could have noticed if you had just paid attention to it at the time being.
And that is why I share.
Sorry, do you guys hear that crackling?
Yeah, it's coming.
I thought it was rain.
Got it. It's somebody's doing something. Yeah, got it. Okay, somebody doing something upstairs. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, the chairs.
Yeah, I was like, is that us? I was like, farting over there, Courtney. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we paused. I won't share details of the abuse.
Okay.
It gets really uncomfortable and it's super gross.
Okay.
I'm happy to share the leading up because that's really important for people to be able to see, like you're saying, like those warning signs, things like that.
Yeah, you can get into as much details as you want.
Okay.
I have learned the more details, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, sometimes the grossness of it, I think that it also brings the reality of the situation to fruition because I don't think that people understand the severity of the suffering that children go through and what they go through. Because like recently I had one of my best friends come to me and tell me like she just shared with me how she was raped by like her uncle and then like another family member when she was younger, and she went into the details, but like the details was like one, releasing for her, but two, like important for me to just understand the severity of what she went through. So it's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. It's more just to keep people informed and to also give them the reality of the fucked up situations that are going on in the world. Because I think we live in Orange County. That's this bubble,
right,
where people have no goddamn clue.
Oh, yeah.
They don't realize that the messed up things are happening here or there. And so, yeah, it's up to you, whatever you'd like to share.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, exactly what you said, Joe, that, people think trafficking is like taking someone and then removing them from their parents and taking them away. And what it just is when we're talking about sex trafficking, it's the exchange of goods or money for sex or sex acts, and that's really what it is.
Okay.
And so it started out, and it often starts, and that's in the phrase grooming too, and a lot of people misuse that phrase as well. And as someone that is a survivor of sex trafficking and sex abuse, it's super bothersome when I hear people using that phrase and misusing it and adopting it in places where it doesn't belong. But when we're talking about grooming, it is this slow, steady process of kind of bringing someone in and keeping them close to you so that they feel safe with you first, but you have ulterior motives and they're not safe with you. So it starts off usually innocently enough. It could, in my situation, it was someone that, saw a lot of potential in me. And I am a bright kid. I was a bright kid and I was a straight A student.
Yeah.
So it all fit. I also, again, just didn't fit in anywhere. I didn't have like clubs or sports or things that I was doing. Yeah. That's an important key thing too. I'm a huge advocate for getting your kid involved in something and having a safe space for them. So,
But I mean, one of the basic tenets of like being children, I think there's like three things. It's one of them is like recognition. So if you're not receiving recognition from your peers or your family members, then as a child, somebody comes and gives you recognition, praises you, and starts giving you one of your basic needs. It's very easy to take advantage of that person because it's something that all human beings need to function properly.
that's so true. And
Yeah.
I don't even think I talk about that part enough. I'm really glad you said that. Like, this was a man that was like the first, and he was, a much older man, and I'm a young preteen teen. This was going on for years. The first person to ever call me pretty.
Yeah.
And that like blows your mind. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, someone thinks I'm pretty?
Yeah, you're impressionable at 11 years old.
That changes everything.
100%. I was told I was ugly by this chick, I think, around that age, and I like immediately stopped eating for like a while. Like,
Really?
Like there's some like.
But you probably, like, you remember that
I remember that
one.
moment. I remember
right?
her name, and I'm not going to say her name, but
Yeah.
I remember that exact day. So it's like you're very impressionable, and so whether
It
it's good
stays with you.
recognition or bad
Exactly.
recognition, that stuff stays with you forever. And so yeah, you're very impressionable, and so an adult that knows what they're doing and is expert in manipulation is going to take advantage of those situations.
And he was my teacher, so he saw it too. And this was middle school. Middle school is,
power too.
and no one's happy in middle school, right? Like, it's very rare. Everyone's
Yeah.
kind of suffering. I had it pretty bad. I was like tall and awkward and geeky and like thick glasses. And I mean, I was like a nerdy kid. And I know that's like cool now to be nerdy, but like this was not a good look. And I was picked on relentlessly for years. So he could see that. So he could see how much a well-placed compliment would mean to me. So it starts with the compliments, the attention, saying little things to make you feel special, and then the gifts. This was a person that was independently wealthy and taught just because they liked to teach. It was really, I think they wanted access to children. And so had a lot of money and could share their wealth.
So dark and sick when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you weren't the only one. I'm obviously we're going to let the story unfold, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that more things uncovered later.
I don't know. I can only guess that I wasn't the first and I wasn't the last.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And so basically he started giving you recognition, started taking care of you. And so I guess, when you say like trafficking, I'm imagining he might have even like pimped you out to somebody else, but it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like it was just maybe with him.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And so obviously, I guess when you were going through that all, did you never think to tell anyone, or were you just so happy that someone's giving you love and attention?
It didn't feel like it was wrong.
Okay.
It didn't feel, this was a person that was accepted by my mom, that was in my family circle, that ate dinner at our house multiple nights a week for many years. This was a person who was
your mom didn't think it was strange for him to have dinner with you guys at your house. Like, why was he coming to your house to have dinner?
Great question.
Yeah.
Can't answer that for you. I just don't know what their thinking was. I only know what happened on my end, which was he was there, and that he was there a lot, and he was a big part of and that. But like, I know you're like, this can't be happening. You have like this look of like,
no, I'm just, it's not that I can't be happy.
No, I know.
I have so many questions.
It's so common. It's so common. And it'll hit the news. You'll see often like these coaches, like these like softball coaches or soccer coaches, like, and I'm telling you this story. I share it because people need to know it is not absurd. It is not outlandish, that it is happening. It is happening right now. It has happened many times before.
Was he married? Yeah.
He was married for a period of time and then divorced. And then he didn't have children. I don't know what his situation is now. I don't know what
I'm asking is particularly at that time.
It doesn't look like someone were like driving a white van, some creepy guy with like oddly placed facial hair. This is like a clean cut math teacher who's revered and honored and respected by everyone in the community, and was like one of the cool teachers too.
Yeah,
and that's also another thing I've noticed too. Like, it's like the cool coach, it's the cool youth pastor or whatever that like people like know and accept and like, and they know how to do that. Like, okay, this is gonna totally. I mean, I don't care. I'm old. I'm 42. But so like at the time, I remember Wayne's World was the coolest thing, right? Wayne's World was like the thing, and he would use like Wayne's World lingo in class. Like he would say swing, and he would he would quote the cool movie at the time. And actually I think he was like 42 at the time, oddly enough. So I think for like someone older to be like using young lingo, it was like, wow, he's super cool. He knows, like, he knew how to get in with kids and make it to seem natural and comfortable. And remember, this is slow and gradual. It started when I was like 11 years old and then till I was 18. So you're talking like a 7-year period where someone is playing the long game. Like, they are not just like overnight crossing a line and crossing a physical boundary. They're playing the long game. And that's how this goes.
I mean, how long did it take before he crossed a physical boundary with you?
Years. It took years.
Years.
And it was a slow process, and there were gifts. Gifts to myself, to me, gifts to my mom. And just so it just seemed like, I want to just take care of you. I just want to be a part of your family. I love you guys.
But he was your teacher this whole time, or he was?
No, he was only my teacher for 7th grade.
Got it. And so even, I mean, obviously outside looking in, stranger that he stayed in so much contact even after he wasn't your teacher anymore.
My mom worked in the school as well.
Okay.
And so she was friends with the other teachers. And so it wasn't uncommon for her to have a relationship and have teachers over at the house. That part wasn't that weird. But again, that just added another link on my side of the story. I've seen it in so many other cases where we see it a lot like this. Like, oh, uncle or tio's coming over. And he's not really your tio. He's not really your uncle. He's just so close to the family. That's what you call him.
Yeah.
And he's done that on purpose. He's done that over many, many years. He's formed that relationship with the family. So it's like, we're like family. It's like your family member. And they know how to do that.
Okay. So I have a deeper question, just in the sense of, did this guy ever get caught, or did you ever report him?
It's been reported multiple times.
Okay.
Nothing has happened.
Okay, nothing has happened. The reason I'm asking is I'm wondering, if this person did ever get caught and had to go through the court system or whatever, right? What happened to them as a kid that they're doing this? Did they get groomed by somebody and they're paying it forward?
I have no idea.
You see, like, I'm just interested in kind of the psychology behind that. I guess you'll probably have other circumstances of people that have been groomed and trafficked. Do you know if they were groomed and trafficked and then this is what they led to, or is there a specific type of trauma that individual suffered, or is there even any data on that?
There probably is. I'm not equipped to speak on that. That's not my area of expertise. I can share my story. I can share where I see it showing up all the time. I can share that I can be a voice for all those girls and boys, because it's boys too, who aren't ready yet to speak up, don't know that this is what happened to them, just know that something was icky and wrong. Yeah. And I can be that voice and that face and know that it was wrong. What happened to you was wrong. You shouldn't have been harmed like that. And so I can do that part.
100%. And sorry, I'm just interested from the psychological part of it. And I mean, man, there's just so much heavy stuff. And like, obviously, I don't know how many kids are going to listen to this podcast, right? But this is more, I guess, for people that are parents or going to be parents, for you to pay attention to these things. Yeah. And realize that the person that's closest to you, it could be perpetuating something like that. Because, like, from the conversations that I've had with some of my girlfriends that were sexually abused when they were younger, and I guess, trafficked is now a synonymous term to what went on with them, where they were just like, I guess the term I was using was being molested by like family members or friends. They didn't think there was anything wrong. They thought that almost like in a way that they had to act like this, or they didn't have a choice, or that it was the right thing to do. And so your own child might not even know that they're doing something wrong. Right. And so I think it is the moral duty of the parent, or if you're the guardian, to pay attention and make sure this isn't happening, because children know what they know. And if they've been groomed for 7 years, that's a lot to unpack and a lot for them to understand. And I think that it's important for a lot of awareness. And
it's happening right under a parent's nose. And I know my mom has struggled with so much guilt and even denial for periods of time, because this happened right in front of her face. And she didn't want to believe it. She didn't want to see it, and didn't want to think that a person is capable of doing this, and that she was capable of missing it. But it happens. And because it happens so slow and so gradually, and it looks so safe, it looks innocuous, it looks like it's just that family friend.
Yeah.
And they're gonna, and you know, it starts with taking me home from school, and then taking me out to dinner. You did so well. I saw you got another award in school. Let me take you out to a really nice dinner.
Yeah.
Nothing happens there. It's just forming that slow relationship, so that it feels to the child like there was I think there was a coach, and his text messages between him and like a 13 or 14-year-old girl were released. It was the same, very similar to mine, you know, a young kid, teenage girl. And it felt like love to her. You can tell from these text messages. And I don't want to speak for her, but I know for myself and other kids that I've talked to, it felt like love. Like, you think this really special, amazing person who happens to be a grown adult and you're a child, but you don't think about that they've chosen you and they love you, and it feels like love to you, and you have no idea.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to think of my own experience growing up, because I think my mom was abused by somebody when she was younger. She doesn't like to talk about it and doesn't want to bring it up, but I don't want to share her story without her here. But she was so protective over us as kids, and now in retrospect, it's a good thing that she was, I guess. But like, we weren't allowed to spend the night at
no sleepovers.
houses.
My kids are not having sleepovers.
No sleepovers anywhere. And honestly, like, we just really had to hang out with like cousins or family.
Yeah.
But even now, that, you know, there are obviously some sort of risk with that. But like, at the end of the day, like, her over sheltering, it came from a place of real fear. And speaking to you, that fear is maybe not so crazy. And I almost feel bad about the way I might have yelled and told her I hated her, been pissed off with her as a kid, but she just genuinely could maybe feel the energies of people around, because there are a lot of darkness out there. There is a lot of darkness out there.
There is. Yeah. And I do think that you get like an intuition about certain things, like where I'm like, ick, no. Call your mom, Joe, and say you're sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Call her after this.
I will call her after this, and I'll say I'm sorry. Then also, you know, there's the other side of the coin, which is the balance of not living in complete fear all the time, right? And just, as Robert Peterson would say, is allowing kids to do dangerous things as safely as possible.
Yep, I've heard it. I know it's real hard for me. I got to tell you, it's really tough.
Yeah,
my daughter's 6, my son is 3, and like, they're not getting sleepovers. They're not. No, and they're not hanging out over even for a play date unless I'm there and I know the parent and I've met them. Like, no, I'm just gonna have to be that kind of mom. Yeah,
but you know, at the end of the day, as long as you're letting them do the things, that's okay. Like, that was the thing with my mom, is like, you can go to all the things, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So my mom was just at everything my entire youth. Or my dad had to be there, right? Like, one of the two, somebody's got to be there. And if they're there, fine, you can do it. But if they're not, we're just not going to trust anybody. And so at the end of the day, it's like, it kind of like bothered me. But now in retrospect, after having this conversation, I understand why it's so important.
Because they're not going for that kid. Those parents that are like super attentive and always there and always showing up and having those conversations with their kids, they're not going after that kid.
Yeah.
They went after me.
Yeah.
They went after me, and they went after me for a reason.
I guess going through that, what are some of the biggest things that, you know, when it comes to trauma, in my experience from having a lot of the conversations, the trauma can either turn into your weakness and it can crush you, or it can turn into your superpower. So I guess, you know, what are some of the big takeaways from this horrific experience? Especially because after this conversation, you might have not even known that it was a horrific experience, right? But now that you're able to reflect on it as an adult, what are some of the biggest takeaways, good or bad, from this experience?
Oh, that's a powerful question. I'll say it led me here. It led me to the work that I'm doing right now, and been my guiding force in all the work that I've done. You know, I got out of college. I was young. I was like 21, 22. And I went right into teaching, and I knew I wanted to help youth. And I taught middle school, which is the age I was when it started. So it was intentional. And I think my entire work has been to right the wrongs, probably of my past. So the silver lining would be, I think I'm here to help other kids, that I can be a voice and a face for that experience. I can raise awareness. And I can help kids on their healing journey. Because if Casa Youth Shelter is anything, it is a place for healing. Shelter is in our name, and we are a physical structure and a facility, but it's that healing journey that matters. And I didn't have that as a kid. I had to find that as an adult.
Yeah.
So if we can start that for a kid, that's amazing. And that's where we get to see that great success on the other side.
Got it. So, these kids that are coming to you have obviously realized that something wrong has been done to them.
Sometimes not. Sometimes their parents drop them off because their parents can't deal with them.
Yeah.
It's so many different things.
Yeah, because I guess I'm asking for you because it seemed like you didn't know that something wrong was being done. When did you realize that something wrong had been done? Was it like when you were in your 30s, or was this something that you realized when it was going on?
As it was going on, I didn't. I would have moments where, again, just to age us right back into the 90s, like Jerry Springer was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And so I'd have these moments where this feels a little Jerry Springer-ish. And I remember saying that phrase to myself, this feels Jerry Springer-ish, as something that was icky in the ear that you would see sensationalized on television. And then I'd be like, no, this is totally fine. He's my teacher. He was my teacher. He's a good person. Da 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 da. You're
Justifying it.
Right. And because it's your reality. So you don't have to work too hard to convince yourself that your reality is your reality. It's more convincing yourself that it's not. So it seemed and looked and it appeared and felt like all the right things. So that's the weird thing. It's you're convincing yourself that it's not that. It's not what you see. So that's because everything I saw was love. I saw words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I saw quality time. I saw gifts. I saw all the love languages. He was probably the only person giving me love in all of the ways.
Yeah.
So that's all I saw.
Of course.
So then I had to convince myself that it wasn't that. That's the hard part. And that's where I think it's really difficult. So when I was around 18 years old and I went away to college, things kind of shifted a little bit. And I don't know if it was because his interest changed because I was no longer
available,
a child, or because I was no longer a little kid that he can control and be there. But I was off and living my life and let him know this feels wrong. This doesn't feel right. And I didn't even draw a hard line or boundary, to be honest. I kind of was just this feels a little strange. And he went crazy and cut me off. And that was the beginning of the end, which I'm grateful for. But me just having that one moment where I questioned him led to him saying, no, I'm done with you, which is a great thing. It felt like
relief.
No, not at the time. It felt like the greatest heartbreak and pain I've ever experienced of my life.
Yeah. This has been somebody that you had been with for almost 7 years.
Yes. And not just a boyfriend, but also a father figure. And I know that's creepy and weird, right?
Of course. It's
somebody I loved intimately, somebody also that was a dad to me. So, and that's the weird thing about this when this happens to folks.
Yeah. And I guess I'm sure there's a lot that what he was doing is completely wrong, but was he actually in a weird way a good figure in the sense that he was teaching you good things and was being proper in that way?
No, see, that's a great point too. I've explored that with my therapist because how do you not throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? There were good pieces there.
Yeah.
It was all wrong and done for the wrong way by the wrong but it's very confusing. It is.
Yeah.
I've dropped now. I go to therapy. I'm proud of that. We're the work that we do is a facility for therapeutic services.
Yeah.
If I'm advocating for anything, it would be if you're hearing the story and you're saying, this sounds familiar to my own life and you haven't yet explored that in therapy, I advocate for that. And we offer 3 free therapeutic services to kids and adults as well. So please come find us. We're available.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I think it's important, and I think it's extremely important that you don't seek therapy after the issues have already happened and you're at your point of downward spiral and depression, because I found that it's a lot harder to make change when you're in those downward spirals. I think therapy should be something that people do on a regular basis, at least once a month or every couple months, because it's like a tea kettle. If you wait till the top's ready to burst off, it's a lot harder because it's all trying to shoot out at once. If you just let out a little bit of steam all the time, you're not going to be dealing with a piercing noise trying to cut through your life.
It's so true. And that is something I'm really grateful for. I did seek out therapy early and often. I think also my pursuit of education kind of kept me on track. You said the downward. I didn't have a rock bottom or a downward spiral. I'm an anomaly, and I say that with some pride, but also as a warning, because I should not be. The statistics say I shouldn't be where I am. I shouldn't have a law degree. I shouldn't be a CEO. The things that have happened to me the statistics say that I shouldn't be here. I should be something else. And I'm not. And I've thankfully never struggled with substance issues, that I've never felt the need or desire to go into sex work. No disrespect to those that have chosen sex work. I haven't experienced a life, thankfully, that I'm not happy with or I'm not proud of. That I did at the time use my pain and use my challenges to propel me to just work and grind a lot harder. And you know me personally, you know I'm a grinder, and you know.
For sure.
So yeah, and like you shared before, it can break you or it can be your superpower. And we all get to decide that. We get to decide. And even if you've started to become something that's broken you can change that at any point and any time.
Yeah. So when it comes to being CEO of the nonprofit organization, how did you end up in the position of being CEO since you don't have experience being a CEO?
I had worked though in nonprofits for a while. So, and I was the chief program officer. So being C-suite helps you.
What does C-suite mean? C-suite mean just you were one of the C?
Yeah, C-suite, like executives, like
okay.
CEO, COO, CPO, CSO. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I'd been a C-suite officer for several years. I knew the nonprofit industry. Also, the master's degree in educational leadership is geared towards running a school, but it's applicable towards running just about any organization. There's a lot of similarities. So, and then the law degree, like you mentioned, it helps. Like, even though I'm not advocating for my clients and appearing before a judge, I am negotiating contracts and I'm using logical legal reasoning all the time. So every little bit of piece on my journey
together.
Yeah, it's helped me.
Yeah. And I just also want to say thanks for sharing your story. I can imagine it's not fun to go back and relive some of that.
I got a little sweaty.
Yeah, it's like there's all kinds of emotions that go with that. And so thanks for being brave enough to share it, because it's obviously your story. And I'm sure it doesn't feel great sometimes having to go back down that memory road. And wherever that guy is, he has a special place in hell, to say the least. And I'm also just interested, what happened to him to make him like that? Because I always kind of ponder evil in the world. And I'm like, what causes the evil, right? And typically, a lot of times it's somebody was so evil to them that they turned out this way, right? And because I don't know if people are, I want to believe that people are born genuinely good, and then circumstances help turn them to evil, because there's just so many layers of fucked up to what you just told, like the story you just told me. It's it's not just one act of wrongdoing.
Right.
It's
layers and
layers and darkness and manipulation.
Yes.
And not only that, but he's not just manipulating you. He's manipulating everyone around you.
Yep.
He's creating the story, this whole narrative. So it's something really, really bad happened to this person, or there is maybe genuine evil in the world and they're literally sick.
I like that. That's where your head goes. I go there too. And I'll say this. Yes, but, or yes, and. Okay, so yes, something horrible probably happened to him. I don't think that we're born evil.
Yeah.
Let's get a little philosophical.
Yeah.
I think something has to happen to you. I think it's very rare. I mean, it's less than 10% or something of the population is born with true sociopathy. So I think it's so rare that you have someone that's truly evil, that desires harm from birth, right? Super rare, if at all. But that doesn't even matter. I truly don't care. And that's why I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what happened to him. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, whatever happened to him, it happened to me.
Yeah.
And we all have a choice.
Yeah.
He had a choice. I had a choice. Anyone that's ever, when that girl said that comment to you and she insulted you and told you you were ugly, you had a choice.
Yeah.
We always have a choice every single day, every day that we wake up, no matter what happens to us. He chose what he chose. I've chosen to use it to help other people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter to me as much what happened to him, what his sob story is, or what his pain was, because I had it too. My dad left me when I was a little girl. I was abused. I was neglected. All the things.
Yeah.
And I'm not out there hurting.
No. It just matters. It doesn't matter what happened to you. It matters what you do with it.
Exactly. And this, if I have one catchphrase that I love to share, it's, you're not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. that you don't have to own that as part of your identity, that you can shed that off and shake that off, and you can become a lawyer or a CEO or a teacher or a writer or whatever you want to be. You don't have to be that thing. You get to make a choice. You get to decide. And this is what I've chosen. And I'm really proud of it. And he chose his, and
Yeah, you can be a victim of your story, or you can choose to own your story and let it be the fuel to
Exactly.
make better life decisions. I
Exactly.
completely agree with you.
Yep.
I think that a big turning point, it's like listening to Gary Vee a lot. It's like the moment when you start taking ownership that everything, at least not everything, but many of the things in your life have happened based off the decisions that you've made.
Yes.
It makes life a lot easier. Obviously, there are situations like this where there is some sickness in the world, and typically happens when you're younger, and at that age, people are making decisions for you. And so, yeah, it's the balance between understanding that there are some things that are not in your control, but most of the things in your life are in your control.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you again for going down there again. But
Yeah.
these are some of the things that I ponder. And, he'll deal with his karma in many different ways, and hopefully he gets what's coming to him. But at the same time, like, the most important thing is that this happened to you. You didn't get terrified of who you are. You owned it. You then took it and you made it a superpower. And now you're here, and you sharing this story is hopefully going to protect some other little boy or little girl from their own situation that could potentially occur because someone listened to this because you were brave enough to share.
That's my hope, that a parent starts to see that warning signs of like, why is this coach or this teacher getting a little too close to our family? Like, I need to step in and like make sure I'm more present. And I'm a huge advocate for enrolling your kid in extracurricular activities, and that's tough nowadays too, because kids are like really into their phones and they're really into video games, and like they think like, well, that's all the only hobby that my kid has is they just like video games. Get them into Code Ninjas or do something. Get them out there. Get them a safe space where they're forming connectedness with other people.
Okay. At this point, I want to talk about what are 3 stories of, they can be anything you want to share, important stories of children that have come to you. They could be the most messed up things you ever heard, or they could be 3 specific stories that you think are important to share with our guests.
Yeah.
Because that's things people need to look out for. So obviously in your career, you probably have seen many children come and go. I wanted to ask, is there 3 different stories or 3 different children that particularly stick out? They can be the most messed up things you ever heard of, or things that you just feel that our audience, it would be good for them to know about, to keep an eye and a lookout for. So I wanted, if that's okay with you, to share 3 stories. You obviously don't have to share any names or anything like that, but we'd love to just hear about your experiences with some of the children.
Yeah. I'll share some stories, and I'll share some stories of success and some hope, which really speaks to the power of the work that we're doing. I'll not use names, except for in the case of when we're celebrating someone's achievements. There's a movement in nonprofit work called ethical storytelling. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Not.
It's really important because there's like in the days of yore, and I think where nonprofit work came out of is like you go into the deep darks and depths of like someone's sob story, right?
The days of what?
Like the days of yore, like olden days, like the way that like where nonprofit work is born out of is like, look at this poor, sad child for only 10 cents a day. You can change it. Like we grew up seeing that, and like their sad faces and the sad stories, and like, is that really ethical to like parade their sadness and their pain?
Yeah.
And like I share that because that's why I share my story, because it's perfectly ethical for me to tell my own story because it's mine. I own it. It's my experience, and I can be a face and a name and a story that represents hundreds of thousands of kids who can't and shouldn't have to. So I can share that we serve over 2,000 kids a year, that kids call our hotline all the time. And every story is unique and different, that we have kids that are coming to us from out of the country, from out of the state. And then right here, most of them are in Orange County. And I will also share some statistics that you have around 30,000 cases of suspected abuse that are called in every single year. And only 7% of those yield protective custody from the government, 7%. So those other 93%, what's happening to them?
So how do you get like a statistic like 30%? Sorry. Is that just a government like statistic that they share?
The 7%?
No, the 30% of how many are, you said, did you say 30% of people report the actual issues that are happening? So
No, it's 30,000 like actual reported cases. So there's 30,000, like they track their calls.
Okay.
So it's like 30,000, and I think it's something like 160,000 in LA County. So it's massive numbers. So they track the number of calls.
Okay.
And then they also know the percentage that will yield protective custody.
Okay.
Because they rise to that level. And like, we know what that looks like from our backgrounds in law, what will yield protective custody. And the bar is really, really high. The bar is really low for a call to be placed, which is good, because if you have a suspicion, an inkling, you see the bruise, you hear the story, you call it in. And then the bar is really, really high for protective custody. So there are hundreds of thousands of kids that are kept with their abuser every single day.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone ever called on me. I don't know if I was ever one of those kids that like, gosh, this looks a little funky and a little bit weird, we should make a call. I don't know. I'll never know if somebody called on me and they just didn't rise to the level of protective custody. I'll never know. But I do know that that's our safe space that we're working in, because the government can't handle all those cases. So they have to set those really high bars so they can handle 7% of those suspected abuse cases. And then we're taking care of the rest of those kids. They're there. Those are the kids that need to find out about us.
Got it. Sorry, that was a statistic I was looking for. So you're saying only 7% of the abuse cases are actually being handled by the government.
Yeah.
So 93% are really just getting like pushed by the wayside, or they don't raise high enough to qualify as something that the government gets involved in.
Yeah, or there could be not enough information, or, you know, this sounds weird, but we're just not able to take this as an issue right now. And they don't have enough staff and resources too. I mean,
it's impossible.
It is. And this isn't like
I shouldn't say impossible, but it's improbable.
Exactly. And this isn't to like badmouth their process or their system by any stretch of the imagination. They were all doing the best that we can. This is just to show how we can fill certain gaps that naturally are existing right now in the current system that we do have. So the cases that are prioritized are infant, toddler, early elementary. That makes sense. They are the voiceless. These are the kids that can't speak up for themselves. And, you know, we want to know that a baby is safe and taken into protective custody by the government. But that means the majority of those kids that are not being taken care of are the 12 to 17-year-olds. That's the age that we serve. And if you know anything about abuse, you know it's not getting better as they get older. It's getting worse and it's escalating. So they really need help, and they need a place like us.
Got it. And so you're saying most of the children that come to you are between the ages of 12 and 17?
Yeah. And that's the age that we serve, that we're licensed to care for, is 12 to 17.
Okay.
Yes. So so we've seen every sad story. That's just how licensing operates. So they kind of like restrict the age so that, you know, a 6-year-old shouldn't be with a 15-year-old, right? Like there's just such an age difference. And to narrow that.
About that, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, to narrow kind of that scope of care.
Yeah.
That's mandated by licensing and the community care licensing. So we follow that. So 12 to 17. And so we've seen every kind of pain and abuse that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Something that we're seeing on the rise right now.
I'm wondering too, just the ages 12 to 17, that's probably the first time that maybe kids are going to be old enough where they think to call for themselves. Because anything below that, most children are probably not going to be like, I should call somebody.
Yes and no. I mean, you'd be surprised. Kids will call.
Okay.
Very, very young. That's why you'll have those cases of like those 911 calls, those harrowing 911 calls from like a 6-year-old, like something happened to my mommy, or, you know, like kids are very perceptive. They don't always know to kind of reach outside of their family unit, but regardless, there are facilities and other systems that exist for younger kids. We exist for that age group, which I'll say is often the least sympathetic age group. I always say this about like the way our community kind of views who we want to help. We're okay helping babies. We're okay helping little kids. But teenagers, ew, right? Like they're thugs and hoodlums, and they're doing graffiti and the drugs, and they're kids. Yeah. They're just kids. But they are often the least sympathetic age group other than senior citizens. So they need our help. They are children. They're still babies.
Other than senior citizens.
Yeah.
People are not sympathetic to them.
They are not. Those are the least sympathetic age groups, teenagers and senior citizens.
That's kind of sickening that elderly are the ones that are the least sympathetic.
Oh my gosh. People are like, out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to see it. And it's because we can't confront our own mortality, right? Like we can't think about the fact that we are getting old and we are also dying, and that we will also need help, and that we may lose our memory, and we may use our bodily functions and have control over them. Like, we don't want to think about that. We want to think of ourselves as young and vibrant and thriving.
Yeah.
So like, ew, get it out of my sight. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. But yeah.
That's an interesting perspective, and I don't disagree. I think I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My younger sister, so I have a sister who I'm very close with, and, you know, we grew up in Florida and she moved out to California a year after me.
Yeah.
And we are both in service industry. So she's the chief of audiology at the VA, and she works primarily with senior citizens. I work primarily with kids. So it's just interesting who we've
Chief of
chosen.
audiology.
Yeah.
That's a very busy position.
She is a badass.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because audiology, for those who don't know, that means hearing.
Yeah.
And so she's chief of hearing for VAs. I mean, one of the main problems with most people in the military is the loud guns and the explosions, the training. And so they all have hearing problems. Not all of them, but many of them have hearing.
And I'm not going to say anything on the subject. You know why? Because she will tell me, she will watch this and she will tell me how wrong I am. That woman is an expert on anything and everything audiology related.
Yeah.
And I will sound like a moron if I say anything. So no, I'm not going to speak to it. She's the greatest. Dr. Delia Carahalios, you can look her up. She's fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I deal with some audiology with my car accidents.
Oh,
just
okay.
Because a lot of people have tinnitus.
Yeah.
It's the ringing of the ears after an accident. So.
I do know it's pronounced tinnitus. She's
Tinnitus.
taught me that because I would say it wrong. She will correct me all the time.
You're
Yes.
not wrong either there too. Yeah. So it's been an interesting field to learn about. And
Yeah.
also to realize how many people have hearing problems or tinnitus and they don't talk about it.
Yep.
They just think it's normal to have like ringing of their ears a couple
Yes.
times a day and that it's not anything weird. But if your ears are ringing, it is not normal. So
Yeah.
you-
She's actually
or it is abnormal. Abnormal is a better thing to say.
she's like a leading expert in the area of tinnitus.
Nice.
She's been published and does public speaking in the area. She that's her jam. That's her space. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Nice segue. All right. So getting back on topic here, though. So you were going to share with us a couple of stories of some of the children that come into the facility for whatever reason that you want to share those specific stories.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I mentioned, we've seen every kind of pain you can imagine. Something that we're seeing a lot of right now that is on the rise and has been on the rise since 2019 before COVID, but it got much worse during COVID, is suicide and suicidal ideation. So, again, we've talked about cases of abuse, neglect, sex trafficking. We're a facility for any kid that is in trauma or crisis from any way. And it could just be from mental health issues. It could be they were bullied. It could be they are chemically predisposed to having mental health issues, whatever. We're here for all of those kids. So we're seeing a lot of mental health issues on the rise. What's interesting to know, or sad to know, depending on how you look at it, a child cannot seek care at a place like CHOC or a hospital until they have attempted to take their own life.
Why?
They have nowhere to go because they have to, because the hospitals have to prioritize their care for individuals who have already attempted to take their own life. So that's what they're there for. And so until it's reached that point where a child has already tried and failed to take their own life, where are they to go? That's another reason why we exist, because we exist for those kids. Because the hospital will turn them away, and we see that happening. A parent is saying, my child has expressed they have a desire to kill themselves, to end their life. My child has expressed that they have a plan, because it's the next question you ask, do you have a plan? They have a plan, they have a desire, they have the means, and that kid has nowhere to go. And the hospital will still have to say, we can't take your child. They have to say that. So a parent will say, I don't feel like my kid can stay home. It's not safe for this child to come home. I'm worried they're not going to make it through the night. These are stories that we hear from parents. We're afraid that they're not going to make it through the night. For a parent, for a mom, for a dad to be that fearful that they're going to wake up and not see their child and they don't know where to take them, they can come to us because we are a home. We are a care facility where they will receive individual therapy, group therapy, and family therapy if the family chooses to participate.
Okay.
So that's another reason why we need to
You guys
exist.
will provide therapy for everyone in the family if they're willing to work with you guys.
Absolutely.
That's
Even
really
people
cool.
who aren't staying at our shelter, we offer those services as drop-in services too.
Okay, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So you're not
I'm
just
very proud of that.
no, that's fantastic.
And there are places that are offering clinical therapeutic services, but you got to pay a thing. And you got to do the,
Yeah.
just come. We will,
Got it.
it's free. It is free for everyone.
Okay. Yeah. I've never heard of that before. I've always heard of, you'll treat the person that's coming in, but being able to offer services to the entire family, because that's really typically where the root of the
You're
problems
exactly
are
right.
coming from. Is
You're
the
exactly
parents.
right. We can keep a kid with us, right, for
Yeah.
3 weeks for their healing and their growth.
But that doesn't do
And then we
anything.
send them home, and then what's supposed to happen? No, that's why the parents and the family has to be a part of the program
Yeah,
too.
you're treating the symptom, not the cause.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it will have an effect, but it will not have the same effect as treating the root cause.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because children are in the position of control by their parents, and they're just going to have to do whatever their parents want and say. And so you're trying to at least help them heal at that level. I've never heard of an organization doing that. So that's very commendable, and that's awesome.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. We are really rare in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
I'm glad we're digging into those pockets too. So we're seeing that on the rise. It is out there. It is happening. And that is something that affects, every racial background, every socioeconomic status. Like, it's everywhere in every community. If you think your kid is not suffering, think again, because it's like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 are struggling with severe anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
Here's a stat. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death. The second leading cause of death is like the first time it's ever been. The second leading cause of death for kids 10 to 14. If that doesn't make you stop and just sit in your chairs and like, what the hell is happening? But that's from the CDC. That is not from us. That's from the CDC. Second leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds. So we're seeing this. It is on the rise. We had a girl who came to us after 3, thankfully, unsuccessful attempts to take her own life. She tried to kill herself 3 times and had received some care other places. It wasn't working. It wasn't helping her. She found us. 2 weeks ago, her mom sent me her picture of her in her cap and gown. And whenever you see a kid in a cap and gown, you get emotional. You're like, because you see the pride in their face. And we know her journey, and we know it better than anyone, that this was a girl that 3 times did not think that she should live anymore. She graduated on time with her classmates and with her peers. We have a lot of success stories. That's probably one of my favorite. Her story's still unfolding and it's still continuing.
Of course.
But it just doesn't get a lot better than that.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the most beautiful pictures to see that look of pride on her face. And that mom wanted to make sure that we knew she's doing okay, that she graduated on time.
Yeah. So I guess for like this girl specifically, what was the thing that worked for her? Or was it a multitude of different things that like combined into helping her? Was it like the support that the community that you guys gave her? Was it the counseling that you guys did for her? Or was there like something in specific that helped flip a switch for her, that helped her go from wanting to take her life to then living in a life of trying to survive and live for the time to come?
I don't know what it was for her, and it's probably not something that she's going to be able to reflect on until she's a grown up.
There, yeah.
I can share, because we've been around for 46 years, we'll have adults that will come back and share with us what it was that helped them. And there's a number of things that's
like
part of like, that they'll share that like, this is what did it for me. And there's so many different answers. And they're like the randomest things, Joe. It can be something like, so when they wake up every morning, the kids have to make their own beds.
Yeah.
For a lot of our kids, it's the first time they've ever done that. When they're with us, we eat all of our meals as a family, and you don't get up from the table until everyone else is done.
That might be the first time they've ever done that.
And it's often the first time they've ever done that. And those are the things that will stick with kids, and they'll come back as grown-ups and they'll say, oh, do you still make kids make their own beds? And we're like, we do. And they're like, I remember that. I still make my bed now. And you do a lot of these success conversations, and I know you're a student of what makes someone a success. And like, how many times have you heard someone say, like, start your day with a win, make your bed the first thing you do when you wake up? Like, there's a lot of people, Fortune 500 CEOs, like there's so many people that will say, like, start your day with a win, make your bed. And it's something that we incorporate in our programming, and it sticks with the kids.
The same thing. It's the first thing I do when I get out of bed. There's a Navy officer who is one of the most famous, like, college speeches. That's like the title of his speech. start your day by making your bed.
Yep.
And it is a little psychological win.
It is.
But like, I mean, yeah, there's a lot that could go deeper from the conversation, but I think it's great.
And that's like one a little thing like that a kid will say stuck with them or helped them. It could be something deeper than that. We have one girl who came to us after she had run away multiple times, had a lot of issues with her family, high family conflict, found us, and she shared with me it was the first place she ever felt that someone treated her like a human being. That someone ever spoke to her like she was a human being.
Yeah.
And we forget how often homes with high parent-child conflict and just like a lot of hostility and parent is suffering, right? Something happened to them. They're not healed. They're on their own journey. They're not in a great place to parent, and how that ends up being an experience for a kid. So we hear that a lot, like the first safe place, or the first place I felt respected, the first place that I felt it was safe for me. So it could be something like that. I do think it has a lot to do with our unique blend of time and space to be a kid. So we've got, play basketball, do origami, hang out, read a book, and then also clinical therapeutic services. So it's not all clinical and it's not all just being a kid. It's everything together. Another piece that I think really helps is we take their phones. We ask that they surrender their phones. So being a part of the program is voluntary. It's at will.
You ask that they give up their phones at that age.
Yes, we do.
Nice.
Guess why?
Just so that they're fully present and that they're having to sit with their thoughts.
That's
can't escape by just being on their phone.
Yep.
Also, cutting ties and connections to the abusers.
You got it.
Or the people that are trying to hurt them.
And another big reason.
Postures, something I just as a personal injury attorney, always text not on their phone. So I'm sure physically it has a huge benefit for them, and then connecting with other human beings. Those are the things I could think of.
Yeah, and then also, yes, you hit all the main ones. There's one last one, and it's just the negative, harmful effects of social media.
For sure.
That kids are so exposed to, and then it's just so insidious, and you're scrolling, and you're scrolling, and you're scrolling, and you're looking, and like, why don't I look that? Why don't I have that?
Instagram's the number one drug.
Yeah,
so,
it is,
and
they are addicted when they come. And
100%.
Yeah,
I've gone through my own addictions with social media before. It's like it's something that after I read a book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal, where he talks about when you use have you read the book?
I haven't, but I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, so basically you start paying attention to when you do certain things, when you go to certain apps. And so you start realizing that when you go to Instagram a lot of time, or when you go to TikTok or to other social medias, you're doing it based off an anxiety. You're trying to escape your thoughts.
Yep.
And it gives you that quick dopamine hit. So it gives you that adrenaline rush, and then you feel good enough to go back doing whatever you were doing, but you needed that quick drug.
Yes.
Quick. So yeah, it's very much one of the most powerful drugs, and also the most powerful drug powered by AI that is giving you the exact dose, how you want it, when you want it, the way you like it.
Exactly. It's so good. Yes. Yeah. So we want to disrupt that.
Yeah.
So that they can be present and then they can heal.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because people talk about teenagers and like, oh, well, teenagers don't read. Teenagers don't want to talk. Teenagers don't know how to communicate. Yeah. Yes, they do. When you take away their phones, they do.
Yeah.
So take away their phones and watch. We have kids that walk around with their nose in a book and they love to read. And we have a giving library at our shelter. And I was an English teacher for many years. So I love that we have this. I didn't bring it there. I just ensure that it thrives. And we have, so the way the Giving Library works is, we encourage our kids to read, and we'll have sometimes just kids that all they want to do is read. And sometimes where they're like, no, thanks. I'm not into it. I'll do a jigsaw puzzle, but not read a book. But if you read a book, you read Harry Potter and it resonates with you and you're like, oh, this kid was, not loved and accepted by his family, just like me. And he was different. And they that book goes with the kid and they can take it with them. So it's really beautiful how literature can connect with the kids too. We see that happening a lot. So it can be a number of things that kind of make that shift for that kid. And it could be all the things. It could be one thing, and I just don't know. But
no, you answered my question fantastically. I didn't realize that there were so many different things going on. But I mean, when it comes to getting out of depression or getting out of trauma or getting out of these things, it's not going to be one thing typically. It's like building a lifestyle around the fact of being able to support yourself, teaching yourselves the things that you need to know. But one thing that came to mind to me when you were talking about each kid's circumstances, it's just a basic understanding that your circumstances are completely different than everybody else that you've ever come in contact with. And as I get older, I pay attention a lot to like manners specifically with people. And I realize like manners matter, but like more so that I noticed that a lot of people didn't get taught proper manners growing up. And I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, but it's just understanding that I was blessed with good parenting and they made it important that I learn these things. And family meals, we always sat and we ate together. But like there's some basics that a lot of other people did not receive as children. And it's to understand and approach it with a form of like compassion and like understanding and just patience with those individuals, because they might have not had the same parenting that you did. They might have not been as privileged as you were. And everybody is always figuring it out. And a lot of times, instead of like explaining or talking down to that person, instead of explaining it, you just be the example and you show them that this is the way to do it. And people are intelligent. They're emotionally smart. They're not, they're going to be able to pick up on what is the right way to do things if you lead from a place of not degradation, but a place of just trying to assist and to help them along their journey.
And empathy,
And empathy, 100%.
Totally right.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. It's amazing the transformation you can see in anyone or any creature when you just give them empathy and love. My kids and I just adopted a dog. We just rescued a dog.
Yeah.
And same thing with, not to compare our children to dogs, but creatures just thrive off of love. And so that's what we try and give our kids. And we give them space to heal. Another big piece, I'm going to quiz you. You want a pop quiz?
Yeah.
Okay. What is like the number one skill that most behavioral psychologists, child experts, education experts, like if you pool together the vast majority of people who have some kind of knowledge or expertise in children, psychology, behavior, etc., what is the one thing that they would say is the skill that we would want humanity to have? That's like the differentiator
Emotional
between
indulgence.
You're really close. You're like right there.
Okay. What is it?
It's emotional regulation.
Okay.
It's emotional regulation. It's like the neighbor. That's kind of broader.
It is a neighbor.
And like specifically it's emotional regulation.
To regulate it within themselves.
Yes.
What I'm referring to is emotional intelligence, which is paying attention to the emotional in other people.
And other people.
Yeah, and other people. But yeah, being able to regulate your own nervous system is a skill set that takes time to develop.
Yes.
And it is definitely one of the most important skill sets, but it's about building a life that allows you to do that.
Exactly. It's the number one thing that if we could give this to all the humans, it would probably change our culture, our society more than anything. The ability to like, I'm pissed off in traffic. I am not going to cut someone off, or I'm angry in a bar and I'm not going to punch them. I'm not going to get a gun. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to yell or scream. Like all of those aspects. So if there's one tool that I think we're working on at Casa Youth Shelter, it's emotional regulation. And we are able to give them time and space and the people to help facilitate that journey. Yeah. And that's really magical.
Yeah, but of course, this isn't just one skill. This is like building a life of like many different things and like many different things. And like understanding it's not just going to be a one-stop solution. There's a lot of stuff that builds together to be able to regulate your nervous system.
Okay, but you know what excites me? This is what's really cool. Because if you, and again, you're a student of success and I know you, I know how you are, and you're like reading all the things and listening to all the people. A lot of the things that they'll say and what you have to do or what you have to become successful, you have to like buy or acquire or be born with. Like if you aren't born in a certain zip code, if you aren't born with certain parents or certain families, if you aren't born with a certain disposition, like, oh, well, too bad for you. The cool thing is emotional regulation is something you can learn. It is something that's teachable. And that's what gets me really excited, because how phenomenal is it that the most important thing that we need to be successful is actually a teachable skill? How lucky is that? There's this like statistic that was around for forever that the number one differentiator between like haves or have-nots or like success or where you're going to go to college, if you're going to graduate from high school, I think is what zip code you grew up in. Like, how crappy is that? I have no control over what zip code I grew up in. No control. But I do get to decide how I grow my emotional regulation. That's cool stuff. That makes me really happy.
Yeah.
That we're not fighting a battle that can't be won, you know?
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. Okay. So, did you share all the stories that you wanted to share?
I had one more. I have one more I can share.
Okay.
Another example of a great success story. And we see a lot of this too. And this one's just really current right now because he's in our scholarship programs. We have a scholarship program because and that's been part of my work since I got there at Casa Youth Shelter, is to really breathe life into our continuum of care.
Like scholarship to give them money for college, or just for like for high school, or
for college, for higher education. For higher education, whatever it looks like for that individual. And it can be a 2-year, a 4-year, it could be vocational ed. We don't really care. You need a plan for after you're with us and for after high school. And so we're really spending time in the prevention work. Like, what can we do to prevent the effects of trauma and crisis? So getting into the schools. And we're spending some time on the other side of the trauma or crisis, or their experience with us in the case management or the aftercare, or scholarship programming. So we have one kid who's in our scholarship program right now, and he was with us for several weeks and had really been struggling with parent-child conflict. He not feeling great about himself. I don't want to share too much of his story because he's still active with us. But what I can share, and I will celebrate, is that he is at UCI, pre-med, and graduating early. And this was a kid that, when you wonder like what is next for them, when they first come to us, we don't always see this for them.
Yeah.
So it's a monumental achievement for him to be able to celebrate that success.
Yeah.
When it shows up for so many of our kids, that they're out there and thriving and they're thinking about what comes next and planning for it, and not just like existing, but like doing big things. Like that kid's going to be a doctor.
It's amazing.
So cool.
Yeah. You're able to have a direct impact on the clientele, and you're able to see how it changes their life. And they're still in the transformative years of their lives where you're going to make a huge impact because it's hopefully going to affect them forever.
Yes. And we see that when it's at this point in our career, and or rather our legacy, it's generational. Yeah. So one of those individuals that I shared earlier that said, this was the first place that treated me like I was a human being. She is, of course, on the other side of her trauma. This is a grown woman who has her own business, runs her own business, was a donor last year to our organization and a sponsor at our gala. So full circle, this was a kid who lived in our shelter and is now able to help support it with her generous donation. And her daughter takes part in our leadership program. So she's been able to disrupt that cycle in her own family, give back, and of course, change her own circumstances.
That's amazing. Do anybody that is a part of the program, do they end up coming to work for the program later?
Yeah, that happens as well. I know of someone right now that's, she doesn't work for our organization. She works for a sister organization, or a cousin rather, Orangewood Foundation, which is massive and doing the same work. They focus primarily with foster care youth, but it's someone who was with us for many years. And actually she had unfortunately shelter hopped and was in the foster care system for many years and now works on the other side of it. There's a woman in the community, and I just don't want to share any names if that's okay.
Of course.
She reached out to me and let me know that she was with us. She was a resident of our facility decades ago. It made such an impact on her. She's now a founder of her own organization that helps. It's not a shelter, but it helps kids with, I think, like social emotional learning programming and content. So giving back and in that space.
Okay, cool. All right. So at this point of the podcast, I would like to basically direct people to like check out your website, but I also wanted to like point out some things because I was looking through the website.
Yeah.
And so CasaYouthShelter.com. So CasaYouthShelter.com. We'll obviously have this
.org.
We're .org.
We're a .org.
Got it. So .org. So we will have that in the podcast notes. But I wanted to talk about your site. So there's some statistics on the site that I think would be important for people to understand. So on the site, obviously, you have your About Us, our work, what you guys do. And then, of course, if you would like to donate to the organization, there's a link which you can click to donate. But there were some statistics on the bottom that I just had some questions and just wanted some clarification. Some of the stuff we've already gone over, but I figured since we already had it up, just kind of like discuss it there. So you have calls to our 24-hour crisis hotline in this looks like 22, so I'm guessing some of these statistics will be updated soon.
Yes.
But so you guys received 835 calls to the 24-hour crisis hotline.
Yeah.
So is that like do they get like a full hour? Like how does that work? Or they just basically call in and then until the problem is resolved, you just handle whatever is needed to be done?
Yeah, it's treating and meeting the kid where they're at. So it can depend. It is also our primary resource for referrals. So when they're calling in, they're in crisis, they need help. A lot of those individuals end up coming in and then possibly for intake, or it's just sometimes they need just someone to listen to them or talk to them. And so, yeah, it can be anywhere between like 1,000, 1,500. We've seen some really high years, but pretty high traffic. The phone rings every single day, multiple times for crisis calls.
Gotcha. So you have like 12 seats, but I mean, throughout the year, about how many kids come through?
For residential services alone, around 200 to 300 kids will live in the shelter. Yes.
That's quite a few.
It is.
So you really get to get involved with a wide range of individuals.
Yes.
So next we have 1,728 total number of shelter days provided. So I'm assuming these are the amount of days that like per child that they get to be in.
So if you add up all their days in the shelter, that's what it would come out to. Got
it. And so you also mentioned earlier that you were talking about like the fact that you provide nutritional meals. Are you guys very important on like the nutrition? Do you guys give education on that? Do the kids get to help cook the meals, or are they more just served? Can you explain that a bit?
All of the above.
All the above.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Nutrition is really, really important. And like what we put into our bodies and what we use to fuel it. I mean, what garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, so that's important. And for a lot of our kids, when they've been like existing off of a bag of chips and a can of soda, to have like a delicious, nutritious home cooked meal, that is also life altering and life changing too.
Yeah.
So the food needs to be good.
Food is healing.
It is. It's medicine.
Yeah.
It really is. Our staff cooks all the meals in-house. It is. And so we cook in all the meals in-house. I mean, sometimes we might like take them out for a treat.
Of course, yeah.
Fun. Yeah.
Ice cream's good for the soul.
Right. They are kids, so we don't, it shouldn't feel like oppressive. But
no, but that home cooked meal is much more healing than any ice cream will ever be.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great way for people to get involved too if they're looking for ways to kind of give back and volunteer and cook a meal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big on family meals, and like when I go out with my friends, I just love everybody to order everything and share, because I think like
I've shared those meals with you, Joe. I know exactly how you order.
Like,
you order like everything off the menu.
But like it's like instead of each person having their own meal where it's like a personal experience, like we're all in it together. We're here, we're sharing, we're discussing. You're feeling the same emotions that the person is feeling next to you. You're loving this together. Like it's a family experience. I mean, like that's how I was raised with my family. We just always share everything. Yeah.
I've shared enough meals with you. I know exactly what your home life is like. And you can also imagine like what it's like for our kids when they're like hovering over their plate and like
they're probably protecting it sometimes. They maybe have to fight for their food, or maybe they don't get enough food, right?
We'll have kids that like come in and it'll be like their first night or their first day in, and they're like, can we have seconds? Can I have more? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Go grab some more. And that's like mind blowing to them to be able to ask for a second portion from the meal that they just enjoyed. And
how many of the kids that come in do you find are malnutrition? Is it like 100% of them? Because I remember, I forget what I was listening to exactly, but they were talking about one of the main epidemics that we're dealing with just with a lot of the youth in America is just the fact that they are malnutrition.
Yeah.
They're not given enough water because, one, they don't know how much water they should be drinking. They're definitely not given the right foods. And they're basically just, a lot of times they don't have the minerals for their brains to be functioning or developing properly.
I've been reading so much about that. Again, I'm not an expert to speak on that, so I'll never speak on an area where I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I know that we make every effort to get the right nutrition into their precious growing bodies while they're with us.
Yeah.
And it's the same way I look at my kids too, like, and they're getting their vitamins, and it just, you don't know. But We have so many kids that are coming to us with not food allergies, yes, but more like food sensitivities or food intolerances or food fears. Like there's a lot of kids that because of how they grew up with food, they fear food. And they are resistant to that food as medicine. It's really interesting. We take it for granted that we think that like if we put this really great, beautiful meal in front of a kid that they're just gonna like wolf it down and be like, yay, thank you for feeding my body and my soul. No. And sometimes when you're being given something, and this is like for everything, right? You're being given something good and you're like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want it. Someone's giving you the therapy. Like, I don't want that. Someone's giving you healing. I don't want it. Same with the food too. Gotcha. I don't want that. No. I want to eat the candy and the sugar and the,
and the other stuff. I also just to share some information. So I'm like really big on Andrew Huberman. I don't know if you follow Huberman's podcast. So Huberman does this whole podcast on water. And I think that it would be really important for you to incorporate water education into your program because water is the most essential thing that we do every single day. So I'll send you the podcast. But you
don't have to. I'm very familiar. I'm a huge Dr. Huberman fan.
Got it. Okay, fantastic.
I take my AG1 in the morning.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what like not my first, but like my third act when I got to Casa was? I started getting us a subscription for water delivery service.
Nice.
Because we didn't have that before. And I was like, we're getting water because I feel exactly the same way you do.
Yeah. You're going to do something, do it right. The 100 ounces a day, just all the above.
Push that water. And we can like, again, it's literally, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But I can make everything more readily available. So we have baskets on display with fresh fruits and vegetables they can grab when they want to snack. We don't offer sugar or sweets, or there's no soda in the house. There's no juice. We push the water. That's what they get. That's what they're offered.
It's what they need.
It's what they need. So we can do as much as we can. And I think we're doing as much as we can.
Okay. Awesome. Good work.
Yeah. I like that you like Dr. Huberman.
I freaking love Dr. Huberman.
Me too.
I'll nerd out.
Do you take AG1?
I do take AG1. I have it at my house, but I also take this other one. But this is a whole nother wormhole that we can get into. But yes, I do take AG1.
No, we're not sponsored by it.
No, we're not sponsored. I have like a whole supplement regime. A lot of the stuff that I take is based on like what his recommendations are, the way I wake up in the morning. I also have an 8 sleep pod cover. If you don't have that,
no, what's that?
That will change your life. An 8 sleep pod cover is essentially this like almost like a sheet that goes over your mattress, but running through it is wires, and the wires run water through it. And so you can set it up on your phone where throughout the night, so when you go to bed, your body temperature needs to be colder than what a standard body temperature is, or else you can't fall asleep. So it literally, you put it at a cooler temperature for when you fall asleep, and then it gets a little bit warmer, but it still stays cooler than the normal temperatures because it keeps you into deeper REM sleep. And then as the time to wake up comes on, it gets warmer, so it's easier for you to get out of bed, and then it vibrates. It's because a normal sound alarm is actually disjarring. So waking up to a sound alarm actually is not good for you, but the vibration is very gentle and it allows you to ease into your day. It's probably one of the best investments I've ever made in my life. And I don't say that I say that very seriously.
Yeah. Oh,
8 sleep pod cover. I'll send you the details.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's really rad. Huberman's awesome. Okay, cool. Nice side tangent.
Yeah.
Okay, and so here it says hours of counseling provided in 2022. So this is what we were talking about before, where you provide counseling for the kids and you provide counseling for the families. So it looks like you guys provided almost 8,000 in 2022.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of counseling.
Yeah, I mean, just like the cost of something like that is crazy to me, but it's being covered and you guys are doing this to help people, which is amazing.
Thank you for calling that out. You know, I'm not on here to ask for money. I will share that we're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And that's how we exist.
I mean, it's expensive.
It is.
Yeah. And I remember how much my therapist is.
Thank you. And we don't, that's a really important part of us to not ask our families and our kids to pay for it because they're not going to come. They're barely able to come as it is. They're definitely not going to come if they have to pay for it. So we need to keep this free for them. And to be able to do that, then we have to ask for money from kind strangers. So yeah, it is really expensive. And we do have a licensed clinical care team. We do it the right way. You know, these aren't people that play pretend therapy. This is real stuff.
Professionals.
We're also a teaching institution, which we're really proud of. Having watched Grey's Anatomy for many years, I was like, oh, we're a teaching institution.
What does that mean?
It means that we are educating and filling the pipeline of the next wave and generation of mental health professionals. So we have students at Pepperdine, UCLA, USC that come to us while they're in their marriage and family therapy program, while they're learning or being trained as a licensed clinical therapist, to come to us to complete their hours. So they get trained then under our clinical team and then can go off and become great mental health professionals. So
That's rad.
it is really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. Good work.
Thank you.
All right. And then the last statistic I think is pretty self-explanatory. 99% leave with improved emotional well-being, obviously. So we can move on from that one.
Yeah.
And what I want to go to next is I want to look at your guys's, this is your work page. So we've kind of hit on some of these, but I just want to talk about what you guys provide here because I had some questions about them. So what is the short-term program and what does that mean?
It means that this is not their new home forever. It means that this is short-term. And that can be hard for people to kind of grasp. And I think it's those that are in the foster care service system have done a really great job advocating for that work, as they should be. It's super important work. And so I think a lot of our ideas or the way we conceptualize kids' needs is around permanency and like, where are they going to go permanently? And we are not that. We aren't that. We are not the permanent place that they're going to live and reside. We are short-term. We are emergency. We are like, we need help right now. We don't feel safe. We don't think we can live another day in our home. That's what we are. And we also exist to fill their toolbox. So come to us for 3 weeks. Let's give you the skills that you're lacking and then work with family to integrate you back into your home life there. So it's a different approach that I think not a lot of people are familiar with. They think like, we got to get them out and then we got to take them somewhere else.
Yeah, but like how long, for example, let's say that the family is in crisis, they're there for a couple of weeks with you and they're still not fixing their emotional delinquencies. And do you just offer continued therapy until they feel that they're better? Or do you have to refer them out to someone? Like, how does that work?
They can be with us for as long as our, and again, that's not my area of expertise. I'm not a licensed clinical therapist.
Yeah.
That team will decide what's appropriate.
Okay.
And I mean, I've been seeing my therapist for 4 years. So
yeah,
we don't, no one's being turned away unless they have to.
Got it. Like
that's
if you felt that they were abusing the system or they're taking advantage of you, maybe you would, but it doesn't sound like even then. Like,
no, because like what do we call like abusing the system? Like if someone has needs, if someone says like I need help, like
if they also are to the point where they're trying to abuse the system, they probably need help and they're still trying to figure it out anyways.
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. All right. So a lot of these programs you're saying are short term, usually a couple of weeks. It's not going to be like a long-term stay or a long-term situation.
Yeah, this isn't where the child is going to live permanently. Like we want to help figure that out.
Yeah.
So we're going to help them find safe and stable, whether that's back at their home with another family member or another facility. We just aren't licensed for that care. That's not how we exist.
Yeah. Okay. And then as for counseling, we've talked about that. You guys have licensed professionals. Not only that, but you are an educational facility in the sense that you guys help train others to assist other people that are going through similar struggles. So we've kind of went over that. What are parenting classes?
That's another interesting part of our work. So it's the psychoeducational part of it. So being a parent.
But are you teaching parents? Okay,
yeah.
So these classes are for the parents, particularly the ones that are willing to come in and learn.
Willing or court mandated. So we do offer court mandated programming as well.
Is your program specifically something that you guys have created yourselves, or is it something that you've gotten from somewhere else and you white label it through your company?
It's ours. It's our and pulled from other sources as well. But yeah.
Okay. And how long are these classes? Is it usually like, or does it depend on what the parent needs?
It depends, and but several weeks. They're pretty intensive, and all of the work is really intensive too. And people will often. That's another thing. Like
intensive,
they're only with you
like 8 hours a day, or like what is intensive?
Oh no, only just like a little bit each day, but then coming back frequently. But like with our therapy, for example, if a kid's with us for 3 weeks, they're receiving therapy often twice a day or at least once a day. So you pack in like years worth of therapy and counseling within a 3-week stay that they have with us. So like say you go to therapy, say you've been going for every year, you probably only go like maximum once a week, right? Or like every other week, maybe once a month.
Yeah.
They're doing it every single day, sometimes twice a day. So they get a lot that's covered over a 3-week period. Parenting classes are also intensive. They can be, a parent can elect to attend, or it can be court mandated.
Got it. And then case management, I'm sure, just means that you guys are managing the child, making sure that they're getting what they need and keeping an eye on each one of them. Is that about right?
Yeah, I hate that phrase, case management. It sounds so...
Because then it almost like takes away the humanization.
It does.
It makes them seem like another number. but sometimes for lack of a better term, or just for the terms that the government uses, that's the term that you're
Yeah,
using.
I'll tell you, internally and externally. So it says that on our website, and we're actually going through a website revamp. But the phrase that we changed that title of that person. So we have a case manager on staff, and I've changed her title. She's now the continuum of care manager, because I just like that better.
Yeah.
And it's more current phrasing. It's the continuum of care. It's like what happens before, during, and after.
Yeah.
Case management is like, like you're another file and you're another number
Words
in
are
the
important.
system. They are.
Words are important. Every word is important.
Professor Moore.
Yeah, words are important. Professor Moore. Wherever
Magic
you are.
words.
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. I wear sometimes socks with sandals.
You better.
You'll be laughing.
You better wear those socks and sandals.
We had a professor in law school. He is a cartoon character, to say the least, but also one of the most intelligent men probably on the planet.
Greatest, most impactful teachers I've ever had in my entire life.
He would wear a bow tie, button-up shirt, cargo shorts.
Yeah, cargo pants. Like
and,
could zip off at the
and then
knee.
zipper like sandals with socks.
Yeah,
and
the Velcro sandals. That was his look. It was like, but like he was in on the joke, right? Like he knew his look was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. He loved it. Yeah, and one day we all came to class dressed as him.
Yes,
which was hilarious.
Oh my gosh, I have that picture.
That was such a great thing. Yeah, just send the picture. We'll post it up so people can see it. But it was great. It was a lot of fun. But he was also one of the hardest professors I've ever had in my life. But if there's one thing I've learned is the harder your professor, the more you learn. So I learned more from him than any other law school professor that we had, because he forced you to pay attention.
Do you say the word clearly in a courtroom? You probably don't.
No, absolutely not. I call people out on saying clearly now. I'm like, no, it's not that clear.
Exactly.
Like, please don't. But or is it obvious, right? Like, it's things like that. But yeah, he was amazing at explaining complex topics in simple ways. So it's really good. And then community outreach. What is that?
It can be a number of things. It can be like getting our word out there so that people are educated, and then so that they know about our services and they can receive them. Something that I've started since I got there is these know better, do better luncheons, because when you know better, you can do better, right? Oprah, Dr. Maya Angelou. But really to kind of,
in every way, I'm getting better and better.
Right? But if you don't know any better, like how can you do any better? And we can't expect that we're going to help people heal if we don't even know what's going on. So reaching out to the community so that they can receive our services, but also to educate them so that they know that we exist and that there's a safe place like this that does exist for people.
Okay. And then lastly, youth leadership program. What is that?
That's really cool. That's a program that's been around for many, many years. And it's kind of part in talking about, the continuum of care. You've got the stuff that happens before the prevention and the stuff that's on the other side, the after, or the case management. That's the YLP, or the youth leadership program, bridges those. It can be for kids who need something to be involved in so that they don't fall into a horrible trap of trafficking, grooming, mental health, whatever. So it can be, on the good side. You come from a great family and you want to stay on the right track. You can be in the leadership program. Or it can be for those kids who have experienced trauma or crisis and want to be involved in something. So it's this great bridge for all kids. It's a leadership program. I wish this existed for me when I was a kid, because I was a straight A student. I was a really smart kid. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to do all the things. I wasn't like running around like graffitiing. I was a good kid. And even for the kids that aren't, like you need something to keep you involved, to keep you caring and moving forward and growing. The youth leadership program is that. And I love that it's for everyone, that it's accessible, inclusive for all kids, no matter where they are in their journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. One thing I would say is, just from my general thoughts, is right. Obviously, you're getting donations to help make this happen, but I think that the word about what you guys do and how you do it needs to get put out there more. Yeah. I think social media is obviously a powerful tool in that sense, and just sharing as much as you can, because like if I didn't have you to do a deep dive on a lot of this stuff, I wouldn't understand a lot of these things and what you're really providing. But it sounds like you guys are providing so much.
Yeah.
And really making a huge impactful change for the people that do find you. But it would be great, I think, for kids. I don't know how you specifically target them. That's obviously your journey to figure that out. so they knew that there's something like this that they could reach out to before it gets too bad.
Seriously, we're working on it. And it's opportunities like this to appear on a podcast like yours to reach so many people. So thank you so much. This is how we get the word out there.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to wrap up the podcast. So what is one thing you want to leave the guests with, if there's one thing that you could share with them, and then we'll wrap up after that?
I think the most important parting words I can share, that I share with everyone, that I share with, it's important for kids to know, and it's important for grown-ups to know, and that is, you are not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. That you are so much more than that. Your identity is not the trauma or the crisis that was put upon you or that you survived through. That you are so much more than that. And every single day is a choice of the kind of person you want to be and you get to be.
Thank you for sharing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And for any of those that are looking to donate or to maybe get involved, how can people reach you, and where can they reach you, if you want to just tell them on the podcast?
Yeah, I'm super accessible. I love when people reach out. So you can find us on Instagram at Casa Youth Shelter. You can find me personally at Jessupann, JESSUPANN. And you can go to our website, casayouthshelter.org. I mean, we are here. We are ready. You can come into our shelter at 10911 Reagan Street in Los Alamos. We're open all the time. Doors are always open.
If people wanted to volunteer, is that something that's possible to come assist?
We love volunteers. Yes, come hang out with the kids, play basketball, cook a meal with them. If you know how to cook, please share your cooking skills. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So if anybody would like to get involved, please reach out. We'll have all those details in the podcast notes. And just once again, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a hot minute since we've seen each other. It's been really good to catch up. And I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. God bless. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.